Hello friends, Tom Downey here from Chat Sports and NBA Now. The 2019 NBA Draft, it's done, it's over. Now we're dealing with the fallout. In particular, let's keep handing out some NBA Draft grades. Of course, we went through the general overview. Let's focus in on one of the teams that I think actually did the best this year. Weird to say it out loud. The Chicago Bulls. I love what the Bulls did this year during the NBA Draft. They didn't trade up. They just stood where they were and got great value and good players in the process. They had number 7 and number 38 entering this year's draft. And point guard, of course, was the biggest need, but there were really only two they had a chance at that made sense. Darius Garland and Coby White. They had some interesting trade up. The Cavs were trying to trade down from number 5. The Pelicans did trade down from number 4. Were one of those point guards going to fall to them? In the end, one did. Coby White out of North Carolina. It was by far Chicago's biggest need. Chris Dunn, he just ain't it. And now, Coby White, who I believe is a really strong fit for them, is the pick at number 7. And they didn't even have to trade up to him. He just fell to them at number 7. A great break for the Chicago Bulls. Jimmy Adam, number 6 overall on his big board. I think that makes sense. And I like the player a lot. The more and more I watch Coby White, the more and more I go, this dude's it. 16.1 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 4 assists, and shot 35% from deep on a pretty high amount. And oh, by the way, he's super fast too. I love my guards who can play off ball, can play point guard, can shoot, and can run. And the defense will come, I think, as he develops a bit more. He's not as good, at least in my eyes, because I love this kid coming out. He's not as good as Jamal Murray. There's just a little bit of that in his game, though, in terms of the ability to shoot as a point guard. And most importantly for Chicago, Coby White can play off ball. That's key when you have a guy like Zach LaVine who tends to do his best work with the ball in his hand. So grade the selection here of the Bulls taking Coby White, number 7 overall. A, B, C, D, or F. When you find value, when you fill a big need, and you fill it with a player who fits really well, that's an A grade for me. I love the pick by Coby White of Chicago. I thought it made a lot of sense. If he thought of him at number 7, I wasn't sure he was going to, but he did. It's an easy A pick for me here. A great selection by the Chicago Bulls at number 7 overall. Then to number 38. Maybe the Bulls didn't have the biggest need at big. They have Wendell Carter, they have Lauri Markkanen, and they do have Feliciano as well. But Daniel Gafford, had he gone pro last year, might have been a lottery pick. There's definitely upside here as a rim runner, as a shot blocker, the type of modern-day big man that NBA teams are so focused on. Good size here, too, 6'11", 233. Biggest concern for Gafford, not the scoring, not the rebounding. He needs to get a better jumper. He didn't have much of one this year. Arkansas, I think, kind of misused him. He's not a back-to-the-basket guy. He's an athlete. He can jump, he can dunk, he can get rebounds. There's also some serious shot-blocking potential when he's not, getting himself into foul trouble. Think of him as a high-energy guy coming off the bench. You need those guys in the NBA. If you can get one in the early part of round 2, that makes sense. Remember, 38 overall, it's not like the NFL draft. You're not going to find a starter in most cases. You're typically finding a nice bench big. That's what Daniel Gafford can be. How about a player comp for you? How about JaVale McGee minus the Shaqtin' a Fool moments? That's who I think Daniel Gafford can be in the NBA. That type of 10-ish, 15-minute-ish guy off the bench there. A good fit in Chicago, who of course already has Wendell Carter as their starting center of the future. So now Chicago's lineup, I like it. It's certainly not an NBA title contender, but it's heading in the right direction. Lauri Markkanen could hopefully take a big step forward. I love him. Coby White, I'm high on him as well. Wendell Carter is another building block there. Zach LaVine, Otto Porter, a little bit older relative to those 3 guys, a little bit more expensive, but they're good players in the NBA. The bench, well, maybe that's where they focus. Gafford's one piece. Hopefully Hutchinson continues to grow. Chris Dunn can be your defensive point guard of the bench because he's just not a starting caliber guy. So question for you Bulls fans out there. How many games will Chicago win next year? Let me know in the comment section. Remember, they won 22 last year. Wasn't a great season for Chicago. 40 seems too high. So how about 33? Is that a fair over-under, or am I being too much of a hater on Chicago? Let me know in the comment section how many games the Bulls will win next year as they continue a rebuilding process. Overall, though, for me, I give this draft an A. I'm a big fan of it. I like Coby White a lot. I like Daniel Gafford a lot. They didn't trade up and use any other assets. I think Chicago had a very quality draft, and they didn't sell that second-round pick for money like they have done in the past. Jordan Bell, for example. Jimmy and I both give it an A. I almost said my own name there. Nice. What do you guys think, though? Grade this draft class for me. A, B, C, D, or F. I think it's an A. I think Chicago, frankly, had one of the best draft classes this year. They got a great point guard in Coby White, and frankly, the last truly starting caliber point guard in this year's class. Didn't have to trade up and get him. Got a talented player with great value in Daniel Gafford in round 2. That's a win for me. I'm a big fan of what the Bulls did this year. They took care of point guard, crossed that off as their biggest need. They do still need more shooting. That's an area they're going to have to focus on. However, they have some cap space. I would love for the Bulls to find a shooter that can come in as that guard forward kind of combo player there, can just shoot threes in the corner there. The Bulls do have cap space, $18.5 million, so there is some money to play with here. Now, the real question is, how, even maybe slash if, does Chicago spend that money during NBA free agency? Before the draft, Patrick Beverley made all the sense in the world for the Bulls. He's from Chicago. They needed a better point guard than Chris Dunn. Beverley wants to get paid. Chicago has the money to pay him if they want to do that. They need a point guard. It made sense. Then the Bulls took Coby White. And you got to play Coby White. Like, there's no reason not to if you're Chicago. You want to make him your starter. So does Patrick Beverley want to come to Chicago and be a sixth man? Does Chicago want to use their cap space on a backup point guard? I love Beverley, and he made sense before the Coby White trade. And he can do a bunch of different things for you. He plays great defense, 7.6 points per game, 5 boards, almost 4 assists, can shoot. But if you're Beverley now, don't you look for a place where you can be a starting point guard for a contender? There are still some fits out there that make some sense. And for Chicago, do you want to bring in a guy that obviously wants to play and would play because he's good and cut into the minutes of Coby White? I'm not so sure that's the most likely outcome there for Beverley and Chicago now that they've taken Coby White. If White was off the board, I thought it would have made sense. So again, here were some of the pre-draft suitors for Beverley. The Clippers, they still make some sense. Dallas remains, I think, an obvious fit there. Maybe less so for Chicago. The Suns and Lakers, both still make sense. Yes, Phoenix took Ty Jerome, but that was 24th overall. They could still use a point guard. So now a big one for Chicago. If it's not Patrick Beverley, how did they use their money? $18.5 million in cap space. Allow me to throw out an idea here for Chicago. You're one of the few teams that, A, is not going to sign a big-name free agent in all likelihood. You have some cap space if you want it. Maybe you should use that cap space, eat a bad contract for a year, and acquire a future first-round pick. Maybe the Thunder. Maybe they ship out Dennis Schroeder, and they attach a first-round pick next year for it. I'd be intrigued with that idea for Chicago. I know it's less of a win-now move, but let's be real here. The Bulls are not exactly one $15 million player away from making the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, that's just not where they are right now. What does make sense for them is a future first-round pick. But if they don't go that route, who will the Bulls sign in free agency? Let me know in the comments section. Throw out some names out there. We, of course, mentioned Patrick Beverley. I think Chicago has options for that third or fourth tier, if you include the Clays and the Randalls in that first and second tier there. Beverley's like a third or fourth tier guy too. To find some extra, I did hear mentioned, by the way, a couple names around the Bulls. Corey Joseph and Ish Smith, both of them kind of fit that veteran backup guard role that Chicago could still use. So folks, let me know in the comments section, what free agents will the Bulls sign? And if you want to be more aggressive, who should they sign? Who do you want Chicago to sign in NBA free agency? Again, I think guard makes the most sense. Maybe another shooting wing, but I think you're kind of hoping for Trent Hudson to make a big step forward there. So again, folks, let me know in the comments section, who will the Chicago Bulls sign in NBA free agency after a fantastic 2019 NBA draft haul?